Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we learn about the 10th annual Nanette Philibert Business of Art Symposium. Here at Missouri Southern State University, it has a long history of teaching art to students, whether it be painting or sculpture. And while the creative spirit and skills are nurtured, how can that translate into a career with a company or cell phone business? Well, we get the answers to that question and more from our guests, including Art Department leadership, symposium coordinators with the Small Business Development Center, and participants. We begin with how the symposium started, and for that conversation, we welcome Dr. Nee Abrams, and Professor of Economics and Finance, along with Frank Fischker, Professor of Art and Design. Thank you both for being here.
Well, you're welcome.
So this is the 10th year of the symposium, and to understand its goals, we kind of need to look back at its roots. So tell us about its founder, Nanette Philibert. Dr. Abrams, you want to start?
Sure. Nanette was a professor of management. Her field was more in the human resource management. She joined the School of Business somewhere around 2010 as an assistant professor. And Nanette was the consummate lifelong learner. So even though she was a management professor, she was always looking for something else to do. So I think one semester she decided to take a sculpting class. I thought it was a painting class, but it was actually sculpting. She had taken some other classes in Spanish, French, and this was one of the ones that she took. What surprised her when she took the art class was the fact that these students were doing great art, but they had no idea how to market themselves, how to get this to the public, how to make a business out of it. There's no point in making great art if you can't make money
That's
out of
right.
it. At the end of the day, that's the goal. And I know some people, do art for the sake of art, but you still gotta live, right?
Right.
So this symposium or this idea was birthed out of Nanette's desire to marry the art and business, and that's how the symposium started.
All right. So Frank, tell us exactly when did it start? I mean, it was 10 years ago, obviously, but...
All right, so 2013, if my math is correct.
Okay. Has it grown from Nanette's initial vision?
Yes, it certainly has. When the first year, it was actually set up as a management project for one of her classes. So it was a senior level class, and one of the things that human resource officers do is they set up training sessions for their employees at wherever they're working. So she had her class set this up as a training exercise. We were the employees that were being trained essentially, and the students had to learn the logistics of trying to set something up like this. And that worked out really well. I mean, I remember every week there was this couple business students coming to ask more questions. And then the second or third year, Nanette got a promotion in the department. She didn't have the time, or she wasn't teaching that class, I'm not sure which. And so the Small Business Development Center came in as our second helper. But yeah, it's grown every year a little bit. We've expanded the offerings. There's always been sort of a design side and a studio side, but we've expanded that. A couple years we've actually done a museum side. So if you're going to become a professional working at, say, Nelson Atkins or Crystal Bridges, we had some speakers talk about that sort of world. And then we've also brought in other schools who have graduate programs in art to let our students kind of interact with and find out a little bit more about pursuing
What
studies.
might be the next step for them? Yeah. Why is it hard, if you're studying art, to have time to take business classes while you're here at school?
A Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, which is sort of the nationwide standard for learning studio art, that's an 80 hours of content sort of degree.
Wow.
And state of Missouri limits an undergraduate degree to 120 hours. And so we have an 80-hour degree plus about 45 hours of general ed married together. So we have a couple classes that are cross-linked both with the general ed and the art. So we can still meet the 80-hour standard for art, meeting the general ed standard. There's just not room in the curriculum to have business classes on top of that.
So this symposium is very important to get that level of that kind of education. Dr. Abrams, what are some of the business classes that certainly translate to marketing oneself as an artist?
Well, the most obvious ones are going to be, one class will be the Principles of Finance class. It's Finance 101, which teaches students basically personal finance. Once you know how to handle your personal finances, you can easily translate into business. But the more important ones are going to be, other important ones are going to be a class like Principles of Marketing. How do you set up marketing? How do you market yourself? Knowing some principles of accounting also helps because you have to bill your customers, right? So you have to know what your receivables are and those kind of things. Also, being able to understand, communicate. We teach a class in business communication. I'm sure there's a class in art communication, but the ability to be able to set up your thing, your company and be able to communicate properly is also very important. So those are some of the classes. A class like also Fundamentals of Organizational Behavior, which is Principles of Management, teaches you how to relate to people. So those are some of the classes that become very important. Financial management might also be one that somebody might want to learn. Basically, I'm telling you, you need a minor in a minor in business. I've basically gone through the minor in business.
Someone wanting to start, say, their own business when it comes to producing their art, they're going to have to understand if you take out a business loan, you have to pay that back. And is there a timeline for that? Because art is a little bit different. I mean, it maybe a little more time has to go into creating your product. It doesn't mean you have like an entire inventory in the back room as easily as maybe in other fields. I mean, would you agree with that?
Let me, and this is where the SBDC comes in, where the Small Business Development Center comes in. So even though the students might not be able to take these 3-hour classes in the School of Business, in the Small Business Development Center, they have 1-hour classes that introduces students to some of these ideas. So that's where their partnership with this symposium also becomes very important because they can lend themselves. We have what we call the 1-hour entrepreneurship classes that allow students to learn some of these things that I've talked about.
So do we also involve the community, and how can it be helpful for the community at large?
Yes, the symposium's always been free to the public. When the pandemic hit, we started also offering a Zoom broadcast, so it's available by Zoom as well. So you don't even have to come to campus for it. And we also started inviting a lot of the local arts agencies. So Spiva Center for the Arts is going to have a table and be here. In the past, we've had Neosho Arts Council. We're working on the Carthage Arts community as well. Joplin Regional Artists Coalition, they've been part of this for many years, and really one of the biggest partners has always been Connect to Culture, which then is the umbrella organization that kind of outreaches to everyone.
So if there's an artist who needs to know about it, they'll find out because they do deliver that message. What do you think is the overall goal and the benefit of having this? I mean, have you seen it transform some artists as to how they can actually live making art? We always hear about starving artists, but can you make a living at it, and does this help them in that way? Oh,
absolutely. One of the students who came to this a few years ago, she's now fulfilling orders for Silver Dollar City. She's working in Neosho with the Clay Cup, as well as their Joplin branch. So there are business aspects or bigger businesses that you can kind of be part of as an artist. You can also do it as a solo act where you're a small business, you're self-employed, and that used to be the bread and butter of the United States is
and
small
work
businesses.
Out of your own home, possibly.
Exactly. Set
so
up
you don't
a studio.
have that overhead.
Correct. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both for sharing all this information about and the history of the Nanette Philibert Business of Art Symposium. Thank you for being here. The symposium is happening November 1st and still taking registrations. As we go to break, here's that information. And when we come back, we talk with coordinators about this year's event and special guests. Welcome back to Newsmakers. The 10th annual Nanette Philibert Business of Art Symposium is slated for November 1st. Joining us with all the details are Katie Fields, Director of the Small Business Development Center here on the MSSU campus, and Dr. Dan Cravens, Assistant Professor of Entrepreneurship at the Plaster School of Business, and Kelsey Little, also with the SBDC. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So tell us about this year's event. So starting, what is the window time for these speakers in these sessions? Tell us about who's going to be coming.
Yes, so the event is slotted for November 1st, as you mentioned, on campus in the Billingsley Ballroom from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. So between that time, we'll have introductions. We will have regional presenters such as JRAC and SPIVA, along with MSSU activities in certain departments on campus. And then from there, we will break out to our keynote speakers, along with, we'll have a lunch break in between, and then from there, we'll go to the portfolio review.
Excellent. Kelsey, I know you were instrumental in booking some of these speakers, so tell us a little bit about the keynote speaker.
So we have two keynote speakers. We have Jimmy Adams and Andrew Batchelor coming. They are two totally different types of speakers because one owns his own business. He is an entrepreneur and he is a studio artist selling his wares. And so that's very exciting for students who want to go into entrepreneurship. And then the other one, he works for Ramsey Media Works as the creative director. And so these two keynote speakers are going to give us a great overview for different students who might want to go into private business, but they're also great for people who want to go into entrepreneurship. So it's going to be a really great mix of keynote speakers.
And I guess students really do need to know that there are a variety of opportunities. And
Absolutely.
That art isn't just, oh, I have to make great paintings. You know,
Right.
I mean, art takes many forms and facets. So, but Dr. Dan, you teach entrepreneurship. So tell us, is it harder to be an entrepreneur as an artist than maybe another business?
So let me phrase it this way. Entrepreneurship and art are both creative activities. So you take your typical entrepreneur, they've got an idea, they've got a vision, and they want to turn that into something concrete. It's very interesting. Most people assume that entrepreneurship is about making money. And we like money at the Plaster School of Business and MSSU, we really do. But it's really about being creative. So for an artist, for any kind of entrepreneur, whether they're an artist or they're somebody in some other field, it's really the same process and the same challenge. So you go up and down the streets of like small towns here in Missouri, our part of Missouri, and Joplin, which isn't a small town, but places like Carthage, Webb City, where I live, you'll find a lot of art-based businesses in those downtowns. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of people being successful in these fields. It's just helping students see those opportunities that they can do this. And in the entrepreneurship program, which I teach in, we give students the tools so they can be successful in those fields, whether they're an artist, whether they're in engineering, mathematics, or some liberal arts field. So
let's talk about what are some of the basic tools that these students need to be successful in either marketing themselves or creating a business that is surrounding art. I mean, because we talked a few minutes ago about like, hey, if you get a business loan, is that something to think about, or do you start small by going to like a farmer's market?
Entrepreneurship is multidisciplinary with regards to business. So you mentioned marketing. That is a key element of it. Also, it's being able to communicate with folks your idea to potentially to investors of, this is my idea, this is how I'm going to make money, this is why there's demand for what I'm doing. But there's also finance, there's accounting, there's even some economic related research as well. There's management with regards to selecting a team or building a business. So it's really multidisciplinary, and we attempt to hit upon all those things, but we try to make it fun and creative too, because people that are entrepreneurs, they want to create, they want to make things. They want to change the world in a lot of cases. And it's interesting, as I was thinking about this interview, there are so many parallels between entrepreneurship and the fine arts, because both are forms of human expression, being creative, sharing oneself. And this is very interesting. We don't think about that, but it's very much present.
How much does today's world of social media play a role in, as an artist, putting yourself out there? I mean, is online business just as important as brick and mortar kind of business? I mean, the SBDC gives them some advice as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's very vital. I know when we work with clients, we're always telling them, if you're selling out the front door like a brick and mortar, are you selling out the back door on an e-commerce platform? I think it's very smart to know that your market isn't limited to your drive-by count, right? We live in a global market, so it's about putting your business and your product or your service online. And so at the SBDC, we help clients do just that. We figure out their best platform. Where is their target market? You know, is Facebook the best option, or am I going on Instagram or any other platforms there are, or do I need my own standalone website? Those are all things to consider when looking online.
What would you say are some of the key lessons that students would take away from this event?
I think one of the things that for a lot of students, especially students getting ready to graduate, is, oh, where's my career path? Where do I go with this? And there's a misconception there is not a good career path coming out of the arts, and that is not true. And there are definitely careers. Graphic design, for example, it's becoming very lucrative, very in demand, very high tech. So I think that's one of the messages, but also providing those basic tools, learning resources about resources like SBDC and the work that Kelsey and Katie are doing there, but also to know the different resources that are out there and have that vision of, this is the path forward for me. If I want to do this professionally, if I want to share my art, if I want to share my creativity, entrepreneurship, commerce, business are a route to do that.
So Kelsey, when students come into the SBDC, what are their fears? What are their concerns? What kind of questions do they have?
You know, I think most people, whether they're students or whether they're community members, come into the SBDC feeling vulnerable, and they're just not sure where to start. They have this great idea, whether they're an artist, whether they're in some other sector, and they just want to feel validation with their idea. And so for us at the SBDC, it is providing them a space to ensure that they are heard and to make sure that they are moving in the way they would like to move forward with their vision of their business.
Do you ever have to tell someone, that's not realistic? Or tell them, hey, here's what you need to do first? I mean, are there other steps you might have to recommend?
Absolutely. A lot of people come into the SBDC with the end goal in mind, but they never know. They have to start somewhere first. They might even need to be thinking of legal structure, even getting online, e-commerce, all of that stuff. So sometimes we do reset expectations, but all of our clients are amazing and we love working with them.
What would you say at this symposium, who should come? I mean, the community can come, but who would you say, hey, you might learn something if you come here? Who would you be reaching out to if you could say, I want to invite you to come on over?
I think students on campus, definitely all our art majors and design majors, but as a community as a whole, anyone in the art district, anyone that creates something with their hands, that are in the farmers markets of the world, or the Joplin Empire Market, those that may have a side hustle and they just like to create things for fun at home. Maybe they're not even selling it and they can put it online, or maybe art is business for them. So
a lot of people do art as a hobby, and do you see a lot of businesses start, as a hobby business, but it seems to take off?
Absolutely. A lot of businesses literally start in people's basements or a spare room, and then they grow out of that. I worked previously, I lived in Idaho and worked for a university there, and I worked with a photographer who started exactly that way. And a lot of these turn into successful businesses. They create jobs. And that's definitely where programs like SBDC, some of the skills we're hoping to teach in the entrepreneurship program are to help folks like that, and that is very common. Again, it is a joy when an entrepreneur has this wonderful opportunity to do something professionally and lucratively that they enjoy, and that is one of the joys of being an entrepreneur.
Do you feel like sometimes artists undersell themselves? Do they know how to value themselves? Because I knew somebody who said they were a photographer, and they're like, yeah, but everybody wants me to do it for free. So.
Yeah,
I would agree. I definitely, it's very valuable.
We just had a client in our office last week that I said, well, what is your time worth? And it was like deer in the headlights, and they don't consider, well, I'm putting my time into it as if it was a W-2 job, right? So a lot of it is coaching clients through that to be transparent and look at themselves that their time is money.
And how to value what you do, not just the product you make.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you all for joining us and telling us about the symposium. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
The symposium is all about preparing artists for a future where their art can also be their business career. When we come back, we get the perspective of students who've seen the benefits of the symposium.
Hello from the studios of KGCS TV. I'm Lydia Carlson, a communications major here at Missouri Southern. We're making lots of changes to modernize the TV station and bring you better quality video and content. But we need your help. We want to find out how you watch KGCS and what you like to watch. So we'd like you to take a quick questionnaire. It's as simple as holding your phone over the QR code on your screen. That code takes you to a link where you will see a short survey. If QR codes aren't for you, find a link to the survey on our Facebook page. Thanks for watching KGCS TV.
Art students can learn a lot about marketing and selling their art, but they also get some extra advice at the event with a portfolio review. Joining us to share the perspective of the student artist are Norman Lewis, who is a Bachelor of Fine Arts major in design, and Maggie Antilion, who is a BFA studio art major. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. What do you hope to take away from this symposium?
This is my second time here, so I guess just more information about the future, because I'm graduating in December. So.
How did you feel about, you went last year, so what do you feel like you took away from it? What were some of the lessons learned?
Man, a lot of insider knowledge about starting in business and what goes into being a designer in that, I guess, scenario. And we also got some reviews for our portfolios, which was very good insight. And I've been working to try and embody what I learned in the last year. So
Maggie, what do you hope to take away from the symposium?
I would like to see fiber artists maybe there. I know that there was a ceramist last year, and he was really inspirational for me. And so just to see more artists and see how they approach, their art as a business would be really,
Has it always been a dream of yours to be an artist and be able to make money from it? I mean, there are a lot of people who say, I never expected to be able to make a lot of money from my art. Has that been a dream of yours?
Yeah, I kind of accepted the fate of not being, exceptionally rich, but I never consider it being impossible. And so I always kind of try to keep an eye out for people who have made a business, because I know, anything can be in business. And art especially is kind of, in a way, an invisible business. It's something that you know about, but you don't really see. And so I think that's what's one of the most important things about this symposium. You get to see that.
And when you see it, you don't really think about it, because everything's been designed, but that's not the initial thought behind it. It's usually just a brand, but even that's art, so.
Right. And so, I mean, they did mention in the last segment, graphic design is kind of a burgeoning industry, especially so much of it is done on computers, and technology has changed. Is that a world where, do you find it even more competitive?
Yes. Art in general is extremely competitive, because everybody is out there trying to make their own thing, make their name, but there's so much retread ground, and people are always trying to come up with something new, or be like an individual in a space that's just so compacted. Like, there's so much going on, and graphic design is so easy to get into, but at the same time it's a very difficult field to get right, I would say, especially since you have to deal with clients, and the field itself evolves constantly, all the time, every time. So you have to keep up with it, but it's always moving at a breakneck pace,
Is that hard for you? Because I know you said, a lot of people do it. I mean, there's so many things with iPhones. Design it yourself. And I made it on Canva. And even, students trying to make their own designs. But is there more finesse to it when an artist does a graphic design?
I think if you have the right background as an artist, like you're educated, I would say, in that sense, there is a lot more finesse, because there's a system when you work as a graphic designer, and not everything is just super spontaneous. And I mean, this isn't like an insult or anything, but I feel like if you don't have that insight and you're not prepared to work on like a schedule or something like that, then your graphic design work might not be as, good, as professional as others. So,
So let's talk about the portfolio review, because you've been through that. What does that mean when they review your portfolio? What are they looking for? What kind of advice do they give you?
So it's just a good critique between you and usually it's a professional at the symposium, and they have a wealth of knowledge that you don't even think about, and just you learn so much about their experience and what they have to say. It's a boon of information, I would say, and it's also really fun because you get to talk about your work, and you get to see how other people would see it, and what you can improve on, and I think it's a really, really good experience. So.
I mean, they always say, a love of art can be in the eye of the beholder. I mean, everybody has different taste. So when you're thinking about what you're creating, do you think about marketing it or trends, or do you just create what you want to create and then figure out how to market it?
Well, I think if you really wanted to sell something, you could sell something. I mean, it goes back to the eye of the beholder. Not everyone is going to enjoy your art, but that shouldn't be an excuse for you to, filter what you make just so that it pleases someone else, So, I mean, you want to make work that you enjoy, but that, you kind of, I guess it is tricky to kind of market it in a way. I'm still kind of figuring it out too myself, but it's not like a crazy difficult thing. I don't know. I think you just.
What would you say is the best business lesson you take away from the symposium?
I think I would say that it's possible, if that makes sense, because you're there with a bunch of successful individuals and their teams, and it's like seeing into the future and seeing an example of what you can be. So I think that hope is one of the best things that you gain from it.
Do either of you already sell your art?
Yeah, I've sold my pieces. I was in a club, so I was part of like a sale, like a group sale. And so that's an example of like the marketing. You don't really need to do much of a marketing because it's marketed, it's a group sale. So people are kind of expecting to kind of salvage through different works of art. But then I've also, outside of that club, I've sold in booths before. That's a little bit tricky, but it's not too. It's not like a graphic design where you have to make this whole brand. You ideally would like to, but you can also just present your work that you've made, and that way it leaves like room for the person to kind of explore your work and see what they enjoy. So.
Excellent. Well, we wish you both success and take home a lot of information from the symposium. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. If you are an artist in the community, you are also welcome to come to the Nanette Philibert Business of Art Symposium. Thanks to our guest today, and thank you for watching.